The House of Kuru, Part 2, Chapter 39. Panchali'S Swayamvara. Will no one win? The defeat of Karna had several kings burning with anger, and several others sighing in relief, for they knew that the son of the charioteer was known to be brilliant on the bow. When Karna failed, the Pandavas became certain that they won the beautiful Panchala. Yet the contest of kings was not yet over. Despite the ardent archer Karna not being allowed, this renewed the faith and confidence in several other kings that the contest is indeed doable. The next king who arrived was none other than Jarasandha, the king of Magadha. He was a powerful king and a known enemy to the house of Kuru, and victory to him would mean that the house would certainly lose the kingdom of Panchala as an ally. He approached the altar where the bow had been carried by 6 men who destrung it and placed the strings back on the altar. The bow now had reached its original dimensions. King Jarasandha stood in front of the bow for a while, and he looked like a large mountain when he did so. He used his powerful arms to lift the bow, and with both hands he managed to do so. Unfortunately, he was unable to hold the bow and string it at the same time. With tremendous effort, he managed to string the first 5 strings when the bow snapped back into its shape and the strings slammed on his face. The king threw the bow down, and without looking at anyone else in the amphitheater, he marched out of the arena, got on his chariot, and went back to his kingdom. The next contestant was Sisupala, the son of Damagosha and the king of Chedi. He failed spectacularly, unable to even lift the bow. Then the great king of Madra, Salya, attempted the contest, and he too only managed a few strings on the bow before it gave in. After almost every king had attempted, the realization that no one can win this contest was beginning to dawn on King Drupada, Draupadi, and Drishtadyumna. The king was sporting a worried look, and Panchali was biting her lower lip, while a small trickle of sweat sneaked out of her brother Drishtadyumna. Finally, kings began to back off due to fear of shame, and a silence filled the hall. No king was willing to get out of their seat and attempt the contest. This began to increase the fear in the heart of Panchali and King Drupada. Did Guru Drona make it intentionally so difficult that even Arjuna could not succeed? Did he intentionally try to humiliate the king? Thought the king of Panchala, and it was at this time a young brahmana arose from his seat. Sporting a large beard, draped in white clothing, he began to approach the amphitheater. All the brahmanas who were seated next to him had mixed opinions. Some were delighted that a man amongst them was to partake in a contest of kings, while others were more envious and jealous. They made comments like how silly it was for a weak, lowly brahmana to attempt such a feat, which was unachievable by the likes of great kings like Jarasandha and Salya. There were others again who spoke differently, as they noted that the noble and shapely proportions of the youth. Look at his confidence. Look at his upper body. Surely he would not compete unless he is certain of his abilities, said one of the brahmanas, while another said just because he may physically be weaker does not mean he will not win. Perhaps this contest is a test of dexterity over strength, asked another. Why should he not even try, asked yet another. Because he will bring shame to our caste. Ask him to cease and desist from trying, roared a few brahmanas with envy, hate, and jealousy in their eyes. Our caste shall not be ridiculed, nor shall we incur the disrespect of sovereigns and kings, said those vile brahmanas with envy and hate burning through their eyes, and this caused Arjuna to hesitate. Upon seeing the hesitation, others cheered him on. Do not listen to those envious men. Go, young Brahmana, we will support you, said the other few, and sure enough, they did. This man has the gait of a lion. He is possessed with a warrior-like virtue. Is not Bhargavarama, the wielder of the axe of Rudra, the son of Jamadagni, a Brahmana? Did he not defeat all the Kshatriyas? Agastya, by his Brahmana energy, drank and drained the fathomless ocean. Flee from here, you petty, envious Brahmanas. Let this man win our pride, they said. And now Arjuna, fully cheered, took their blessings and approached the altar where the bow was placed. Are Brahmins allowed to contest the Swayamvara? Asked Arjuna loudly. He was completely unrecognizable, sporting a large beard, wearing white garments, looking very much like a sage or a seer. No one of the kings or princes assembled in the hall could tell that this man asking the question was Arjuna himself, the mighty conqueror of Panchala. Drishtadyumna, not having any faith in the capacity of a lowly Brahmana, thought it would be safe to humiliate him in public and made it clear, any man who bends the bow, strings it with 32 strings and shoots the target and brings it down will win my sister, as long as he is of good character, family and house. These are my words and there is no going back on them, said Drishtadyumna, half expecting the Brahmana to walk back in fear or shame. Arjuna did no such thing. The mighty bowman Jishnu, also known as Arjuna, circumambulated the altar where the bow was placed, and everyone had their eyes on him. Panchali was drenched in fear and mixed emotions. This man looked exactly like the man in her dream. Was this fate? Will he win? Were the thoughts going in her head, while King Drupada was not sure what to make of this stranger. After Arjuna finished circling the altar, he knelt on both knees and worshipped the mighty god Mahavishnu in his mind. And instantly, the dark-skinned, blue-hued stranger seated next to Panchali heard his thoughts, and he smiled lovingly. Arjuna also remembered Isanadeva, the giver of boons, and spent a few moments duly revering and worshipping both these deities. Then the mighty bowman, the son of Indra, looking like fire itself, approached the altar, and with effortless ease, the mighty steel bow was lifted with one arm by Jishnu, just like Vaikartana did. In very much the same style, he held that bow which most monarchs and kings shied away from, while others could not even lift. However, unlike Karna, Vibhatsu tied the 32 steel bowstrings with superb style in a few blinks of an eye. He tied them so fast that the crowd was not even sure he had tied all 32 steel strings. That bow, which celebrated kings like Rukma, Salya, Vakrabhanga, Suyodhana and even Jarasandha could not string, Jishnu, strung with a twinkling of an eye. It was only upon looking at the altar could they make out that all the strings were indeed tied and that the bow was ready for war. Then that mighty Atiratha made his way to the center of the amphitheater where the pond was placed, and saw on the still waters the reflection of the Matsya yantra spinning above him. The two fish were spinning with considerable speed, with one fish right above the other, but in different directions. The fish on top was spinning clockwise, while the fish just underneath it was spinning anti-clockwise, and every few seconds the eye of the top fish would perfectly sit on the eye of the bottom fish. Panchali's stomach was doing somersaults, as she was unsure if this man was to be her legacy, the man who will win her. She once more stole a look at the dark-skinned, blue-hued man with a peacock feather on his head. He was dressed in golden loins and was sporting a deep, face-wide smile. His skin was so dark that when he smiled, his teeth shone like pearls. Once more, Panchali stole a look at this man, and Yudhishthira, with his keen eyes, noted that the man was now nodding, almost fervently, as though he was approving this. And then Panchali's worry and concern seemed to have completely gone, as she was sporting a wide smile on her face. Jishnu, of spectacular feats, bent his foreleg, placed his right knee on the ground just before the pond, just like Vaikartana did, and saw the reflection on the pond as the Matsya yantra spun above him. He took a good few moments as he reached peak focus. Once more, a deep and desperate silence filled the entire arena. Arjuna's focus was so intense that the Matsya yantra was clearly reflected on his eyes, just like Vaikartana Karna. Then, with perfect precision, just as the top fish's eye superimposed itself on the bottom fish's eye, he shot the first arrow, which perfectly pierced both the eyes of the fish. This stopped the yantra from spinning, and in a series of 4 successful shots, each arrow pierced the back of the arrow before it, causing the Matsya yantra to break and fall down. And as it broke, a bouquet of thousands of flowers fell from the yantra, and as Arjuna was still kneeling, he was covered up to his hip in flowers. A tumultuous roar erupted from the arena. Specifically loud were the brahmanas, who were hollering at the top of their lungs while flying their upper garments and deerskins in the air. "He did it! Our boy did it!" Their cheers were so loud as though the whole community had won Panchali. The uproar that followed was indescribable as musicians played their instruments, peasants roared, and King Drupada swelled with pride and shed a small tear as the monarchs who had been unsuccessful all moaned in despair. Flowers continued to rain from the top of the amphitheater, and the bards and the brahmanas began chanting praises in sweet tones of the hero who accomplished this superhuman feat. Indra, the chief of the celestials, saw his son and swelled with pride, yet kept quiet. Panchali slowly approached the son of Indra, Arjuna, and placed a large white garland of flowers around his neck. Wow! What a feat! What a tale! My great-grandfather had to shoot 5 arrows continuously to break the Matsya yantra. This was truly a remarkable feat of archery, exclaimed Janamejaya. Yes, Yes, my king, this was a feat of absolute spectacular skill. It is one thing to string a large steel bow with 32 strings. It is another to shoot two moving targets with precision and skill, and to shoot 5 arrows in succession requires the complex dexterity only your great-grandfather had, one which Guru Drona knew very well, said Vaishampayana. Well, what next? How does Panchali wed my father? Tell me soon, instructed King Janamejaya, and the sage Vaishampayana promised to tell him the rest in the next episode of the House of Kuru.
I hope you liked today's episode of The House of Kuru. If you have not already, please subscribe to this channel and like this video so that you will be notified every time a new video is uploaded. Thank you.